1 second. Okay, great. So welcome to session 2 of, oh, okay. And here they come. Well, I'll pause my spiel until this person comes in and gets on board. All right, now I will officially start. So welcome back everyone welcome to session 2 of the Speaking Voice Unleashed, Your Speaking Voice Unleashed. What my plans are for tonight or this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, are, as I mentioned in the emails, are to first, I'll play a little bit of our new president's inaugural speech and see if you had any thoughts as speakers. You know, the learning process for you all gaining or practicing new voice and speech skills is as much about what's happening internally as your awareness of what's happening internally, as well as what you perceive in others. So we'll, you know, have a brief discussion from a voice and speech as opposed to political point of view about his speech. Then we will, I think we'll do a quick physical and vocal warm-up. That will include, we'll do again the relaxation exercise where we started out on the floor and then came to standing, as well as the brief posture exercise we did. Then our new material for today is beginning of a two-part examination of pitch, really vocal variety. And first we'll start by exploring resonance, and I'll explain what that is, and we'll do some exercises. And then if there's time, we will start on pitch, and then we will plug that into a quick practice, you know, with our fellow speakers. But that actually, before I go further, I just want to welcome Florence, who's our new speaker. She wasn't able to join us the first week, but I caught her up on what all we did, but just wanted to extend a welcome.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Great. Okay, Colleen's just come aboard. All right, so actually even before we see that snippet of the new president's inaugural speech, I wanted to see if there were any questions from last week, either from things we did in class that you had time to practice or not, or anything from the YouTube videos. I want to make sure that, you know, you feel like you have a handle on what we spoke about or what we did. So I'll pause.
I just wanted to clarify, Joy, is the 1 to 2 minute reading, can it be a monologue, or you want us to stay away from that?
A monologue's fine. So
Okay.
it can really be anything that you won't get sick of for a week or two. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
and again, since this is voice and speech, not an acting class, the intent is to use it for practice. We had sort of tabled in the first class whether we want a culminating event, and that might be more, you know, for the final class, that might be more of a performance where you're sort of plugging in a number of skills you know, you've used or are practicing, etc. But certainly for this, definitely the next couple of classes, it could be a monologue, it could be a poem. People have read from you know, appliance manuals. It can be anything. And in fact, if you find that drier material is actually more helpful, you can do that. I should also say, and I didn't get to say last week, most of the folks attending this course actually do quite a bit of their speaking extemporaneously. So if so if you find that speaking from a written text is not how most of your speaking happens, and you feel like you can practice using extemporaneous remarks on the topic of your choice, then you can switch out. Again, it's what's most helpful for you. For some folks, thinking of content and applying a skill is like, you know, patting your head and rubbing your tummy. But if you prefer to do it, practice with extemporaneous speech, feel free. All right, so kind of my last call for now for any questions from last week. And if we go through things and other things occur, you get to ask again. Okay, just checking the boxes. All right, so then I'll start sharing my screen, and I've done a screen grab of about, I think of about 40 seconds of our new president's inaugural speech. Yeah, so let me get that on screen, and then I'll stop sharing and we can talk about it. Okay, looks like, oh wait, I didn't start my share. Let me start that all over again. Share screen. Okay, are you seeing President Biden? Okay, you'll notice I'll start, there may be a slight delay when he starts speaking. This was a screen grab, but let's see where we are. Oops. Oops, I thought I had a little bit more than that. Let me play that again.
Can anyone else hear what he's saying? Because I can't.
Oh, you can't hear him?
No.
Okay, I see.
Just faintly, I think.
Anything now? Any sound? No? Okay. Let me stop the share. Okay. Well, let me figure what's going on with that. This is the LTA Zoom, not my own personal Zoom, and there may be settings that I have to set up to be able to share video. That sounds familiar. All right.
There's an extra check for when you share the audio, you have to, I'm not sure. It's like a standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
When sharing, then there's like extra box you have to check to share your audio.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing it, Olivia, right now. Let me see if I can quickly, and thank you all for your patience. Share screen. Automatically share. Yeah, and Olivia, I know that option you're talking about. I've had to address it again in my own one. Okay, so I may have to ask you to comment from what you saw in time prior to class while I figure out what's going on. I'll give you a break at some point during the session, which we didn't have time to get to last week, and then I will figure out what those settings are. But I don't want to take up instructional time. So my apologies, first and hopefully last Zoom hiccup there. But
you can send us a link.
Perfect.
Send us a link in the chat, and then by sending us a link in the chat, we can watch a little bit of it if you want.
Great.
Give us a time code to hit, or maybe just the beginning, whatever you think.
Sure. Okay, I'm about to put that in the chat.
Thanks.
Yep. Hi, Colette.
I switched from State Farm because of
That's right.
They have me paying $160.
Whoops. I'm not sure who I just heard. Did I miss someone? Okay. All right. So as I was saying, what I had been attempting to do was share with you about 30 seconds of President Biden's speech. And thank you for folks who were helping me strategize how to give you access to that. We'll call that a minor Zoom fail. And so I'll ask you to go on memory if you were able to listen to it or see it in real time or on news reports. And then if I can't show it during class, I'll do that. So I turn it over to you. Feel free to come off of mute if you had any general thoughts from a speaking perspective. If you thought the speech, and again, not politically, but if you thought that the president was effective as a speaker, why or why not? We can talk about that for a few minutes.
Joy,
I see
Claire, I just want to say the link does work through the chat, by the way.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Is there a place that you wanted us to hear, or just the opening?
What around 7:30.
Okay,
7 minutes and 30
around 7:30. Okay, I'll listen to that. Okay.
Shall we do that now, or are we talking?
Well, okay. I was going to pause it and have us, thank you for asking for clarity. So since some folks have gone ahead and started looking at the video, we can all do it from our separate screens. So I'll give you that, since you have the link. And as I said, start at 7:30 approximately and listen from 7:30 to about 8 minutes into the speech. And then I'll ask for thumbs up if you were able to complete listening to the snippet, so I know when you're more or less done. Okay, awesome. So I'm seeing thumbs ups and nods. Great. Thank you again for navigating the wild, wacky world of Zoom with me. Screen sharing, appreciate that. All right. So as we were starting to do, as we all got access to the video, the link, thoughts. And again, we all listened to the same 30 seconds. You may have listened to the entire speech. Actually, I happen to listen to it as opposed to see it. So that might also influence, whether you heard it, how you heard it. But anyway.
No, I was just going to say that he doesn't, we're taking this snippet and we're not really sure where it comes in, but it's kind of a powerful moment, and he does change his intonation a little bit, but his he gets a little bit breathless and whispery, but that's kind of a performance choice more than a speech choice. So are you asking us to talk about how his performance was, or how his vocal quality sounded, like how was his diction?
Great specification. So I'm not asking you, I'm asking you a couple of things. Was his use of his voice, since we're in a voice and speech class, did he use his voice effectively to have an impact on the audience? If an inaugural address is to move the audience, to communicate a message, to give them an experience, was his voice generally effective, generally not effective in giving you some sort of emotion or communicating some sort of information? Thank you. I see Ben. Ben's yes. And then I'll ask you, and we're also, this is being our second session, we're also establishing a common vocabulary together. But if you thought it was not effective or less effective, given, you listened to it, you saw it, why was it effective? If it was effective, why was it not effective? It was not effective. And you said that Patty, you noted that he modulated his voice, but you maybe thought he got a little breathy.
No, not modulated, but his intonation of when he was talking about something that was, really, really emotional or gripping, he kind of lowered it a little bit. But I have to say, this little kernel, because the wind was about 40 miles an hour and it was really cold, it wasn't bad. But when you compare it with something that he did where he had a lot more control over his environment during his political rally, then he really moved through it with more passion and, intonation at some points, and, lowering his voice at other parts, and, getting more angry or getting more emotional. And I don't know if this wasn't just weather related, because I thought it was pretty flat when it didn't have to be, seeing that he had another capability, in another setting.
Thank you, Patty. Also interesting, your acknowledgement of not only of the moment, meaning the moment in time, the occasion, but also the environmental conditions. Yes, Robin, you wanted to say, and then Florence, I saw your Zoom hand.
Robin, you're on mute.
I felt that the I guess I would describe it as thinness, threadiness of that. I thought that it communicated that it reflected for me the weariness that I think a lot of Americans feel right now. So for me as a supporter, it hit me as compassion, and he gets it.
Thank you.
If I were not a supporter, I would have thought probably, yeah, he's old and weak.
Wow. Okay, maybe that's the power of how we arrive at a moment. Florence, did you want to add something?
Yeah. So the context, given everything that's gone on, I had heard him speak the night before on TV in Delaware, and he got choked up. And I was just thinking, please do not get choked up. Please do not look in any way weak, because, they're going to have a field day with this, and I don't want to see it anyhow. And so that evenness of tone, I mean, he's never been known to be a great orator. And as he goes on, he makes a stab at it. I think I listened longer than you asked to, and he gets into never, ever, ever have we lost. So he's digging deep. But in the context, I just wanted this even guy. And actually, on the subject of speech, I think it's brilliant that he introduced that he had a stutter at one time. Because now if you ever hear him hesitant, you think of him as an overcomer, not like, what's wrong with this guy? And I never knew that about Joe Biden, but they introduced it in this campaign.
Anyone? Yes, I see Chris's hand. Yes, Chris and then Zell.
At least within the snippet that we heard, I did think he made some effective use of some pauses within the speech he had. So in speaking about his speech impediment, this might be slightly off topic, but I also thought Amanda Gorman's speech was just stunning. And she also has a speech impediment as well, which I thought was really interesting, because it was difficult to determine that from the way she was speaking. So it was
just briefly really to follow up on that. I belong to the Voice and Speech Trainers Association, and there was a lot of discussion of, as you might imagine, of the inaugural address and of her poem. And one of the people on the Facebook group trained was her voice therapist. She had difficulty saying R's. Many young people, it's relatively common, we have to train just as we're learning another language, if, whatever our native tongue or tongues are, the tongue is physical. So if there are ever challenges, we may have to train the tongue or train the other pieces of our body that make speech to do particular sounds. And I think many people say "w" instead of "r." They're very similar sounds, but slightly different as far as the tongue position. So this particular voice and speech trainer talked about teaching her to say R's instead of "r," instead of "w." And actually, when you listen, hearing that, you can hear a little bit of the "w" of her R's as opposed to the "r." But this person's saying that how far she could come. Yeah, Zell, you were going to say about the speech. And then I swear I did not mean this is not a beating up of the president, but that we are, we're listening as speakers, but also, as you're already saying, we're listening with all of the moment and actually all of who we are. And then it's both tied and it's inevitably, it's both who we are and who the moment is. All are true at the same time. Yes, Zell, you wanted to say, and then
I think of him as kind of an average orator also. And it's funny when Patty said, use the word whispering, as I was watching the speech, he tends to do this. And I've noticed it in his other speeches. He does this whispering thing. It's like he's talking to us like, come on, guys, don't you see this? And it's, to me, it comes across a little bit like, I don't want to say talking down, but maybe weak. So and then he doesn't seem to vary his tone much. He gets softer, which I thought was appropriate at that point. But then he also has this points through the speech where he speaks very forcefully. So there doesn't seem to be much in between with him, at least the way I observed. And I will second Chris's comment about Amanda Gorman, because after seeing Biden and then going to Amanda Gorman, I mean, it was like night and day. She was amazing.
Gotcha. Thank you. And Olivia, yes. And then
All right.
we will put a pause on a lid on
The
this.
Zoom hand. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I took notes and I looked at a speech as in a way that I never looked at a speech before, of course, kind of technical. And I agree with Zeld about the kind of intonation. It was a little bit, I don't want to say monotonous because it wasn't monotonous, but like every sentence in the beginning used to, like, it had a tendency to go up, up, up. As far as the intonation, and almost seemed like shouting, a little bit patronizing. But on the other hand, I think he definitely used his natural speaking voice. So if the objective was to appear as a, kind of down to earth, your guy, that was probably a good approach.
Thank you all for sharing your comments. Truly, truly. Truly, and this is also a very useful segue, what I planned, into our work today as we talk about resonances. So we talked about pitch variation a little bit with the president, and then resonances are actually where the different pitches happen in our bodies. And they can either be a natural result, something that we don't think about, or it can be something that we use quite deliberately, which is what you seem to be asking or wondering if this is a tool that the president would use as a speaker, or if it's something happening naturally. It can be either. It can be either. Then the other general thing I'll say about pitch, kind of like with pace and even with volume, variety is the spice of voice and speech for the listener. And so it's both practice and, intentional, maybe even somewhat artificial, if you will, for us as speakers. But variety is the spice of life. Monotony, we tune out. So that would be the first thing that I would say. I would also say that I will, when I'm giving you exercises around resonance or pitch, please know that even though I'm a performer, by no means is the idea to make you some sort of operatic or artificial performer of your spoken remarks. They will be giving you tools to spice up, if you want to think of vocal variety or any other sort of variety as seasoning your dish, as it were. One thing I will say, though, is that typically there are some gender differences in the amount of voice and amount of pitch variety that people feel comfortable using or have been sort of trained or acculturated to use. Typically, women are encouraged to have a wider pitch variety than men. And sometimes men are encouraged to, or sometimes fall into speaking into a monotone because otherwise, if they didn't, somehow I've had people say, oh, I started using more pitch variety, and someone questioned what my sexual orientation was, or said I was talking like a girl. I have 2 younger brothers, and at some point they're preteens. They were running around as they often did. And I think a repairman or something said, stop screaming like a girl or something like that. And like that person did not even know my brothers, so inappropriate. But those sorts of casual, or, if a family member had felt that, there can be a sort of, I guess, vocal policing. We're all who we are now it didn't come from nowhere. We speak like our families, we speak like our culture, we speak as a result of our experiences, but there's also this sort of cultural framework. So I just want to say that, like, to get your voice is a combination of a whole bunch of things. And I'm going to give you tools. And if you happen to know things like me remembering the experience of my brothers, that's fine. But if you don't remember specific instances about how you might have the voice you do, that's also fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can make a shift without knowing where it came from. But I just kind of wanted to lay that, that background out in case you feel any type of way as we're doing some of these exercises. All right. So friends, that was a lot of discussion. Now let's get you moving and talking. If you would, since I assume you're all seated, if you would come to standing, we're going to do our physical and vocal warm-up, and that will then lead us into our relaxation exercise on the ground.
Are we gonna need are we gonna need yoga mats soon?
I would say whatever you prefer to lie on, Ben. So great question. Yes. So
Okay,
yoga mat.
Okay, I'll be right back. I need to get my mat.
Okay, cool. I should also say my fiance is in the next room watching football, so you just may hear a voice yelling out at some point. It's life in a one-bedroom apartment. All right. So while Ben is getting his yoga mats, you can just take a moment. Yes, Colleen's getting a snack. Other people, I saw you. I'm not putting you on blast. But... Oh, also in a condo. Nice. Yes, yes. Yeah, we're always living our whole lives, aren't we? If you have water nearby, you can sort of have it conveniently placed or even take a sip. That'd be great as well. Okay. So we're going to do, as we did last week, a set of group stretches, excuse me. But I'm going to give you the first minute or so to do whatever stretches you need. As I said, so much of this is, you know, I'll comment on things that I see and hear, but it's also you having awareness. So if you would give yourself a minute of whatever stretches you need, and then I'll call us back together as a group. I'll do the same, and then I'll call us back together as a group, and then I'll lead you through some stretches together. So if you need to stretch your feet, toes, back, waist, and continue to breathe. As always, if you find yourself yawning, that's great. That means you needed a little bit more air. So feel free if you want to yawn, stretch, if that happens. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And then if you would come back to, for theater folks, what we would call our actors neutral, but at least standing balanced with your weight over your feet. A quick thing, if I ever ask you to stand with your feet about hips width apart, let me give you a quick trick. Oh, that's a good tongue twister on how you would do that. So what you do, and this doesn't have to be exact. If you ever wonder how to find that, then you would take the heel of one foot and put it into the middle of the arch of the opposite foot, and then swing it back out. And that's approximately hips width apart. That doesn't have to be exact, but what I'm asking you to do is not have a super wide stance or super narrow stance, but something in that middle area. Okay, and we'll work our way from head to toe, me adjusting my screen as I need to. Please begin with a gentle shaking your head from side to side as though you're saying no. As I've said before, how far you can stretch will depend on your day, your natural flexibility. None of our stretches are for pain or particularly for challenge, so only go as far from side to side as is comfortable. Now, please change that shaking your head no into shaking your head yes. Again, the depth of how far back or forward your head goes is dependent on how you're doing today. And then I'll ask you to take your head in a gentle circle. You can choose whether you're going left or right. Let me see, I'll do a 16 count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now go the opposite way from whichever way you went the first time. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Great. And since we're up the top of the head where the articulators are, now I invite you to, first of all, let's start by gently humming. So a quick note, if you ever want to find a hum in the middle of your range, what you have to do is say answer a question with a non-verbal response like a huh or an uh-huh. And wherever you naturally answer the question, that's the middle of your pitch. So if I were to ask you, you doing okay today? And you said, uh-huh, whatever pitch that is about the middle of your range. So I'll ask you again, you doing okay today? Great. So that's about the middle of your range. So you can start your hum right around there. And again, it doesn't have to match my hum, so I'll make mine nice and quiet. And then you can let that hum range a little bit back and a little bit, maybe upwards and downwards from that middle pitch. So maybe a not your highest of highs, nor your lowest of lows, but just a little bit of room, gently getting the voice started. And then if you could let that hum move into either a lip trill or tongue trill, and if either of those are challenging, you can continue to hum. So your hum would go from to, I probably changed the pitch, that's fine. Or from a to a, or as before, if the humming is what you are working on. Oh, friendly dog. Thank you. And let that go. We'll come back to more of that later. Now we'll quickly move down to the shoulders. I'm doing some shoulder rolls, going to the back. And then shoulder rolls going forward. And then the torso twist with your belly leading. So then imagine your arms kind of flopping along for the ride. And, you know, if you need to swing your legs to the side as your torso flops, excuse me, as your arms go back and forth, that's fine. We'll quickly do some hula hoop circles. Sorry, I'll lower so you can see what I mean by that. And reverse direction. And now we will go down to our knees with very small knee circles. Excuse me, my Sunday skirt on. And then reversing direction. And then last but not least, whatever foot or toe stretch floats your boat. I'm going to stretch the front of my feet, as it were. And then I'm also going to be silly and just do a faux tap dance. As I told you all, I never learned. So just something a little silly to get to the toes. Excellent. And so now, friends, what we're going to do is the breathing and relaxation sequence that we did last week. That is, if Colette and Nila's dogs will let them do their sequence. So we'll do it, or do it to the best of your ability, canine companions, you know, permitting. And we'll go through the sequence once. I'll lead you through from lying down to sitting up, either kneeling or with your legs crossed, or crouching, excuse me, squatting if you can do that, and then standing. And the goal, friends, as before, is we'll reach a place of relaxation, lying down on the ground, and then we'll come to sitting and see if we can bring that relaxation and breathing to a seated position, whatever that is, squatting on our knees, whatever position is best for you. And then we'll come to standing. And again, the idea is to remind ourselves of relaxed breathing and taking it from that most easeful position, lying down on the ground, to standing up, or even seated, the positions that we might have as speakers. Okay, friends. Also too, if you like, I see actually Robin has turned her video off. Feel free if you want to turn your video off. Obviously, I'll be speaking, and you'll be, dictating your own shift in bodies. There's no particular movement to show you. So do whatever you feel comfortable with, and then I'll invite you to come back on camera if your camera's off in a bit. Okay, friends, so now I'm inviting you to lie down on the ground, on your yoga mat, your blanket, your carpet, etc. As I said last week, if you need to, feel free to prop your head up so that it's slightly, let's say about an inch or so above the surface of whatever you're lying down on. So if you have a book nearby, if you've taken off your shoes and you want to place your head on the end of one of your shoes, if you have a yoga mat or blanket and you want to roll the end of it up a bit so that your head is slightly angled. And we're doing this because for some of us, having our head fully on the ground is slightly uncomfortable. It's an overextension. So I want you, of course, to be comfortable, particularly your head and neck, so that you feel easeful as we breathe. So now that you're lying down, I'm asking you to imagine yourself in a large bathtub, large enough so that you could be floating. Feel that you are floating and weightless. Now that you are here in that tub of water, turn your attention to your breathing. This is not a meditation. It is a joyful, aware reminder and exploration of the wisdom that your body has to be relaxed and to breathe. If it's helpful for you, when I mention a particular part of the body, you can gently place a hand or a couple of hands there if that helps bring your awareness there. So the first thing I'd like you to notice is that your chest rises and falls only slightly as you breathe. Unless our bodies are compromised in ways by injury or other sorts of illnesses, our sternum, our chest, doesn't move that much as we breathe. And if we're chest breathing as opposed to belly breathing, that is, if there's more movement, that's less efficient. That's why I mention it, but notice it. There's only slight movement in the chest area. Now turn your attention to your belly, your abdominal area, and observe the gentle movement in and out as your diaphragm expands or goes in as you inhale and exhale. But notice the movement of your body isn't only through the front, it's also along your sides and even a bit along the muscles of your back. And in our spirit of play and exploration, if you want to roll to one side or another and say, oh, as I breathe, parts of my body come into contact with the floor and then go away again. Or if you even want to roll onto your belly and say, oh, I see my belly really moves in and out as I breathe. I have this ancient wisdom where my body knows how to breathe. Whichever of those you like, or you can remain with your back and head on the floor. Soon, that is in the next several breaths, I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable seating position. And the journey with the seating position is to see, once you've reached that seating position, if you can find the same sort of relaxation or similar sort of relaxation as you are now finding when breathing on the ground. So let's take another few breaths here, lying down on the ground. And then please come to a comfortable seated position. And make any adjustments you need. If you're like me and you carry some tension in your shoulder, and as soon as you start it to sit up, that activated again, tell it I don't need you right now, and you can let it go. If you feel like you were able to bring a lot of that relaxation to your seated position, excellent. Now I'm going to invite you to come to standing and do the same sort of check-in. Are you able to bring some of that relaxation that you had when you were lying down to standing with some adjustments? And if you need to make those adjustments, lovingly say, oh yeah, I see I have a little habitual tension here or something there. Just adjust. Great. Now, presuming you've been able to bring or to find some of that relaxation in the standing position, we're going to take a brief journey with our pleasure breathing, which we did last week. So as you did last week, think of an object, item that has a smell that you enjoy. Food, flower, let's say not a puppy or kitten, because that would be a little wriggly. It would be something that you could hold in two hands. And what I'm inviting you to do is, and yes, it's imaginary, all to the good, because we're exploring in some ways, we're exploring the bodies that we had as children who breathed with relaxation and some efficiency. So imagine this object, this item, you have it in two hands. You can bring it to your face and you are breathing in and enjoying the scent, the aroma. And obviously change the height of your hands as need be for the comfort of your shoulders. You shouldn't need to feel any tension. And because I'm asking you to build awareness as a speaker, also notice how deep your breath is when you are smelling for pleasure, not just breathing for pleasure, but smelling for pleasure. Thank you. And then you can let that item go. Thank it for the memories. And then give me a moment and I will share my screen and we'll move into resonance. Okay. Now, folks, I'm gonna be, well, no, I was gonna say I was gonna talk for a bit, but I'll have you stay standing. And I'll try to talk less and guide you a bit more. All right, so today's exploration, vocal resonances for the speaker. I will send this out as an attachment after today's class. What is resonance? It's the secondary vibration of parts of your body, which are caused by the primary vibration of your vocal cords. So if you hum, that's very technical, but if you hum, if you wouldn't mind humming, and then if you were to place a hand gently on the front of your neck, hum, what you're feeling, that vibration is the vibration caused by your air being sent through your vocal cords, vocal folds. Why do we want to talk about resonance as speakers? Well, last week we talked a little bit about pitch, and a lot of us like deep resonant voices, but sometimes I think you may have heard my boyfriend's football yell there. We can have voices which are thought of as warm without necessarily speaking with our lower range, but by encouraging vibration. So as I say on my handout here, Why should you care about resonance? Listeners may be moved and influenced not only by your words, but by your resonance, your literal vibes. And if you have ever been driving along and someone has a lot of bass in their car speakers, your car is vibrating, your chest is vibrating if that bass is really turned up. Well, that's happening to us audience members on a smaller level when we're literally both hearing and feeling a speaker's resonance. So we're going to get into we'll get into resonance. All right. So folks, I'd like you to, if you wouldn't mind, if you think you can listen and hum at the same time, I'll ask you to start around the middle of your range. So I'll ask you one of those questions. In a moment, I'll ask you, you doing all right tonight? And you'll say, uh-huh. And then you'll start a hum right around there. And then if you could kind of sustain that hum for a little bit, just to kind of keep your voices warmed up before I ask you to start speaking. So you all doing today? When I figure out what I'm going to say. Are you doing okay today? And you can say, please say uh-huh or mm-hmm, okay. And then start a hum right around in that tone. And then I'll continue talking to you. All right, so the first resonator is the chest resonator or the chest voice. And folks, if it's too hard to hum and concentrate, then you can let it go and start it up again as you need to. The chest voice, as you'll see from the little table here, we feel in our sternum, that is our breastbone, and in our ribs. And it's not too high, it's not too low. The chest voice is ideal for public speaking and any situations where you want to be taken seriously. Now, if that feels too artificial to think about the pitch, then I can tell you about the emotional connection. We tend to use our chest voice when we want to speak with authority, when we want to speak with confidence. And so for each of these, I give you a sample sentence. The sample sentence is, and I'll read it out aloud to you. I know this is the right thing to do. I will also put it in the chat if I can do that and share my screen. No, okay, can I put it in the chat? Yes. Perfect. Okay, so the sample sentence for the chest voice, I know this is the right thing to do. And if you, as I can, Robin's the one I'm seeing in this particular view. Yes, so as Robin is doing, if you wouldn't mind placing your hand on your chest, on your breastbone, I know this is the right thing to do. I know this is the right thing to do. Or I am confident about this, or I have the authority to speak about this. That is, again, that is the voice of authority, the voice of confidence. It's not hostile, it's friendly, but it's certain. I'll also say, I also have the column on the right side. You might need extra practice. If historically you have cared too much about what people think, you may not be used to speaking from your chest. Maybe your voice is a little bit smaller or softer, but that chest, because that breastbone is a nice big bone, you can really get some vibration there. You can really get some resonance. But as I said, variety is the spice of life. So then we'll move to some others. And then I will come up, stop the share and see if there are any questions. The next resonator I want to tell you about is the head resonator or the head voice. You'll feel this in your skull, your sinuses, your cheekbones, your nose, and even the top of your skull for the highest sounds. I had a voice teacher that could like send a sound through one corner of her forehead versus the other. I'm not asking you to do all that, but you will notice your head voice is what we call the higher pitches of your voice. These, they can ring in your head, and they should not feel painful. This is when you're happy, when you're confident, when you are enthusiastic. And so the sample phrase for this one is, this is amazing. You could also say something like, oh, it's so great to see you, or anything like any sort of statement where you might have an exclamation. An exclamation. So now I'm going to add, yes. So now you could put one hand or two on your head. this is amazing, or so great to see you, or oh wow. Any sentence you can think of with an exclamation may naturally have may occur, use some of those head voice tones. Oh wow, oh great, this is amazing. And this is the sort of voice that I've had some female speakers to dislike because they feel that people don't take them seriously, or people notice that when they get really excited about something, their voice just sort of naturally goes into the head voice. Perfectly natural. Our voices are built for variety. So then we mix in some of those other resonances as need be. So nothing, enthusiasm is a beautiful thing. It's just variety. If this is an area that's challenging for you, I kind of told you about my brothers as they were boys being critiqued for the sort of, I'm gonna catch you sort of voices. If you take life seriously and have forgotten your sense of fun, or haven't felt safe, being able to show your enthusiasm, maybe you'll need to do some practice to find your head tones. But you know them, they're there. Even my boyfriend yelling at the football game, oh, that was the voice of, that was naturally in his head voice, that was enthusiasm and fun. All right, next one, which is sort of a subset of the head voice, is nasal resonance. And you'll feel this particularly in your sinuses and nose. This happens with any pitch placed in or near the nose. Some of us, by our accents, just kind of how our faces work, may have more nasal voices than others. Nothing wrong with it. And in fact, if you send some tones through your nasal passages, your nasal cavities, you can get a nice ring without stressing your higher pitches. And as I said, any pitch placed in or near the nose, no particular motion, maybe kind of linked to the head voice. If you want to experiment, then I will give you a phrase from the movie The Wizard of Oz. If you all are familiar with that one, the Wicked Witch. Let me see how quickly I can type. Who had quite a had quite a nasal voice. Oops. So I'm just putting in the chat is the Wicked Witch's famous statement, "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too." For this, since we're exaggerating it, it might help to have a little bit of a smile or even a grimace to kind of get those lips out of the way and get that sound into the mask, or the kind of the nasal part of the face. "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too." If anyone ever watched the sitcom from the 90s, The Nanny, I believe she was supposed to be from Queens. She had quite a nasal voice because that was the accent of the people who, the people where that character was from. Fran Drescher, apparently that is not her natural, that is not her native accent. She decided to put it on for that character. All right, this next one is a little bit more subtle. This is what we call the heart voice. You can use it or feel it in your middle to low pitches. Usually it's accompanied by slow, gentle breathing. The sounds are subtle as we express intimate emotions or words of endearment. So the emotions associated would be love and compassion. So in the chat, I've given you the sample sentence, "I truly care." So that's around the middle to low end of my voice. So not the very lowest and not that enthusiastic voice. This is the soft voice of tenderness. This is the voice if you're kissing a loved one goodnight. If you are having a heart-to-heart talk, again, you're seeing the heart word come up again and again. So this is, it's not a booming voice, but it is and it can be an effective voice. I truly care. I truly care. So it's similar to that chest voice that we started with, the voice of authority. It's just a little bit softer in volume and gentler, therefore, in emotion. And then the last one is our gut voice. Since the gut is in the meaty parts where some of the meat of our body is, lots of those internal organs, you can feel some vibration in your chest, your torso, even your pelvis. But because we're getting further away from the vocal cords and there's a lot of meat, as I said there, the vibrations are going to be subtle. This will tend to be the low end of your voice, where you're speaking some fundamental truth. I would also say this can be the voice of a threat. So it's a different sort of authority. It is sort of a level of certainty that can't be shifted. So let me give you a couple of sentences for this, for you to try out. And so the sample sentences I've given you for the gut voice: I trust you. This is what it is about. And then I'll give you a more threatening one. Or firm one, let's say, get out of here. Or you better go, etc. That authority, that fundamental truth. So I have talked quite a bit. Let me stop my share and see if there are questions. And Colleen, I see you writing. I'm going to send all of this, but no, please write if you need to write. I know that's how some people process information. I will also send you this exact table. So that was a lot. It was a little quick. So questions about kind of that survey of the different parts of the body. And then also any other thoughts about President Biden, if you had to name the resonances now that we kind of done this exploration. So yeah, any thoughts that came to you?
I would say he was probably speaking from the chest.
Interesting. Uh-huh. So Ben says he's speaking from the chest. Colleen, yes, go for it, Colleen.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a personal reflection as we were doing
Please
that
do.
exercise. I realized that most of my statements live in the head voice. Even if it's meant to be authority, it can be mixed, but almost always my statements are, this is amazing, in that kind of tone. I often find people either find me intimidating or they find it insincere if I'm not using the head voice. So.
Wait, say that again, Colleen. So people find it insincere if you're not using the head voice?
Yeah, or maybe,
Interesting.
yeah, like maybe it sounds flat or it just sounds like I don't care. So sometimes people will make jokes and then I'll get back to the head voice.
Very interesting. Do you think that's gender-based?
I have no idea. I just noticed it during the exercise, but I think that since you mentioned that most of the head voice is a higher tone, that sounds more female. Gotcha.
And also I should say, we all have, regardless of our gender, have different vocal ranges. But you're saying for your higher pitches, people tend to respond to that, or that you find yourself living in that part of your voice.
Yeah, I guess I didn't associate the head voice with enthusiasm, but I think most of my statements have a level of enthusiasm to them. When they don't, they sound like I don't care or like I'm intimidating or something. I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you both for, yes, thank you for that awareness and then for sharing it. Anyone else had thoughts about it?
Oh, I mean,
Who spoke?
oh, I started to.
Patty and then Zell,
yeah,
and then Brotman.
Yeah, I mean, I have a degree in linguistics and semiotics.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to say, and I study interspecies. So since people here have dogs, so when you're training dogs and people all around the world, there's a predominance of the same type of guttural, angry sound comes out of you when you're mad and angry versus soothing versus the higher pitches. And it crosses all cultures, and it crosses, Aborigines do the same thing. And it also crosses species. So, even a dog that doesn't know you and hasn't been oriented a certain way, if you go, ugh, something really low and guttural, they understand that that's, they're wired to think that that's some sort of danger or threat, which is kind of interesting. And that when you were going through that, I was like, oh yeah, this is, right on the money.
Well, Patty, thank you so much. And also, obviously, this is such an astute, exposed, worldly group. So if you have other sorts of specialties or sets of knowledge like Patty does, please continue to add them. Because Patty, that's so rich to note how elemental that is.
Well, it works for dogs. I saw we had 2 dog owners, and I just wanted you to know that it's going to work for the dogs, or it should anyway. Got you.
I think Zell wanted to speak next.
Just could you talk a little bit more about the distinction between the gut voice, guttural voice versus the chest? Like, what does that give you versus what you get from the chest resonance?
Sure. I'd say the gut voice is less resonant, and I didn't show the slide in the PowerPoint. So sound needs harder surfaces to bounce off of, and it's the gut. There's not going to be a lot of resonance in the gut, Zell, because there's so much meat there. Do you know what I mean? Like literally, the major organs of our body are all in the gut. So I also want you to note that that's not going to be, it's not a big sound on purpose, but so it is a sound of certitude. That's also why it's also the other side is that it can be a sound of threat, is because it's not a big sound. So it's I truly believe this. This is the last time I'm telling you this. It has a sort of like, it's almost the last sound before the lower pitches before your vocal cords stop making contact. It's like almost at the bottom of your speech. Okay. Because it's so serious. We're almost going beyond speech. And confidence, so if I'm saying, you better get out of here. I mean, I'm just sort of placing it at the bottom. And that's a little different from, I think this class is really going to be effective. I think that I can help speakers have positive outcomes. So Zell, to answer your question, these are subtleties. If this were a music class, I could maybe play pitches on my piano where we thought it went from chest to gut, but it's a combination of the pitch, where it lives in your body, and what you're using it for. So it's in there. So you could play with different things and say, oh, I think I'm really saying this in my chest voice, or let's say you were an actor, you could say, oh, well, I'm going to say this line with my gut voice and see if that's where I want it to live. Very briefly, and then we'll get to you all practicing. I thought, just for my own opinion, that Joe Biden had a combination of head voice. They're like, you guys, Americans, I want you, which sometimes got a little whispery, maybe got a little bit of strain. I also thought that he also tried to switch to speak, to apply that heart voice. It's like, guys, I know this, I don't know. I think he says folks. I say folks a lot too, so I might have to find a different one. I might say y'all. Anyway, he says, folks, what I really believe we need to do, and it's sort of in that low middle, I think, and I don't know if it's if he's putting it on or if he knows that's where it lives, or as Patty said, it's that there are these universal tones he's found. I don't know. And it really doesn't matter, as long as it really doesn't matter. But I think it is interesting to note that he mixed, and even if you disagree with the resonances I chose, I guess that what I want to say is I think he may have consciously been using a range of different emotional vocal speech approaches for different parts of his speech, that there were parts that were rallying, parts that were connecting, etc. And so I do believe that that is so, even if we had differences of opinion about the different resonances. I see Colette's hand, and then yes. Go for it.
I was just going to say, because I watched the speech, and you know, I don't love his voice, because I said last week I tend to like more rich, deep sounds. However, he does, well, for one thing, it's 1,000 times better than what we were listening to before, but he does have a very sincere, genuine, I mean, it sounds authentic, sincere, and he's not putting on a voice that's not his, or he's not trying to be, I don't know, he's not trying to impress. He seems very authentic and genuine to me. So that comes across well, I believe.
Thank you. I also wanted to address the comments in the chat, and I called you Neela, but is it Nella? Could you come?
Yes, Nella.
Nella, okay, thank you. And if I mispronounce, I apologize. So Nella shared in the chat, for folks who may not have seen it, that she, if you don't mind me sharing.
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
That's what
that she said that she tended to speak from her throat, and that sometimes hurts her throat. But I suspect it is because of a shy type of personality. First of all, thank you for your just like vulnerability and sharing. So it could be a couple of things. It might be, and let's continue to be in dialogue, either collectively in class or even on the side through email, etc. It may be learned vocal tension, which could be related to the shyness. Again, this is like, this is instantaneous diagnosis, which we'll put that right on the table for further examination.
Okay.
There could be habitual tension, which is both physical, but also the sort of shyness could literally be your, because it all starts in our brain and our senses of safety, or much of how we speak, yeah? Or I'm sorry, I should say our brain tells us whether we're safe or not, or how to be in the world. It could be, they could be connected, that your shyness, so you have an emotion, you're living in the world, you have a reaction. It could be that your shyness is your body literally holding on to your voice with tension, which then is manifested.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So then we'll find exercises. We'll find what that protocol is, particularly when you're speaking in public, which is even more sort of elevated circumstances. But we'll find it. Yeah, that's what I want to say. We'll find it. I also want to tell you that I've experienced that at times. Very briefly, I was up for The Lion King at one point when I lived in New York, and I was so freaked out, I gave myself laryngitis. Like, it was so like, oh, they're going to hear my voice and either it'll be my big break or they'll hate it. I've never gotten laryngitis like that before, but I gave myself laryngitis so that they couldn't hear my voice to reject it. So I just want to share that with you. Also, I was in a production called Jubilee at Arena Stage, and I'm an actor who sings, but there are other people in the cast who did musical theater and opera singers. And the first time I had a few, like, couple of bars to sing as a solo, it came out like this because I was frightened. I was so afraid of people judging me and being embarrassed. So I don't want to presume that what I've experienced is what you've experienced, but I'm suggesting there could be a connection. There could be a connection. But either way, we'll address it. We'll address it.
Thanks.
Other folks, before we get to practice, anyone else wanted to speak about
this? This is a personal thing, but I really had to say this. Is there anyone alive who hasn't seen this movie?
I love it, Ben. You never know. I still haven't seen, what's that Christmas movie with Jimmy Stewart?
It's a Wonderful Life?
Yeah, I never have. I don't know. I'm not avoiding it. Oh, Colette, you and Ben need to get together. I love it. With the Wizard of Oz.
Box
Yes.
set.
somehow in my pop culture, yeah, I've missed it. I've missed it. So anyway, but thank you, Ben, for exposing people in case they missed it. Patty, and then we'll get to practice.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there was, do you have any, I mean, this is maybe a whole nother thing, but there's sort of an ethnicity thing that I always feel like, since I grew up in DC, and I just always say, well, we're really loud. And, when I was working in I don't know, farther into Virginia towards Richmond, of course I'm an English teacher, so, that's just a quiet bunch of people that reads all the time. But I just kept saying, I'm going to just keep my volume down because I don't fit in. And then when I go back into the city, I just start talking really loud again. So is there like a urban, country, rural thing with loudness and volume, or?
It's definitely cultural, yeah. So there's volume, probably, certainly rate of speech. And that's true across all different cultures, that people in more rural areas tend to speak more slowly.
Oh.
But Patty, I'll have to look into volume. I mean, I know typically Italian people say, oh, we're really loud and we gesture a lot. I think there are also ranges in how much different people gesture as well. But I'll look. Yeah, I'll see if there's anything.
Urban or rural thing that I don't know. I was like, creates volume. Okay. All right. That's all.
All right. So folks, I wanted to give an opportunity, and I'm sorry it's so brief because we go until 5:30 today, but I still wanted you to get your speeches in hand, your 1 to 2 minute speeches, 1-page speeches. If you could please have them on hand. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Ben. I love you confirming that you've got it. And I'll have you sort of refresh yourself on the speech a little bit off mic, and then I'll have volunteers share. And what I would like you to do, since we've explored this idea of resonances, is play a little bit by visiting different resonances in your speech. So I said we don't know if Joe Biden is putting on the resonances or they're sort of inherently in him. Now I'm asking you, for the purposes of kind of our workshop together, to be quite, I think we said artificial, so to artificial or intentionally explore. So for example, and I want to acknowledge that how you apply the resonances right now, because this is kind of really a practice, can be quite absurd. So if you're reading from, sorry, I was going to see if I could find something on my phone, but if I were reading the alphabet and that was my speech, then I might practice like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, or something like, do you know what I mean? So the content of your speech for this kind of messy first go round almost doesn't matter. It's that you're visiting the notion of using those different voices. So the voice of enthusiasm, the voice of authority, the voice of intimacy and compassion. And then, after playing with it for a bit, I'll have you come off mic, and then you can either tell us what resonance you're using as you share a little bit with us, or you can say a bit, and then we'll see if we can feel the vibes. So first I'll have you go through, I'll give you about a minute or so. So please begin. And so you're going to see your colleagues making funny faces as they're reading their speech aloud. And I'll find something to read along with you. And I will also go on mute so you don't hear me. I'm happen to be reading from a makeup circular I picked up.
Joy, a suggestion. Would it be possible to have it on screen again, all the different types?
Yes, for sure.
Tables?
Great suggestion.
Thank you.
Yes, happy to. The only thing is if you can, I can't quite fit them on the, oh wait, let me see. Sorry. I just figured out, can I do that? Nope. Let me figure out how to do a 2-page view. Okay. Hopefully that's not too small. Oh, wait, sorry. I just did something weird. Oh, joy. Oh, I see. It's become 3 pages now. That's what it is. Okay, let me get myself together here. Great. And I hope that's helpful. I'll also repeat them in case what you're seeing is small. So there's the, and I'll put them in the chat as well.
Joy, you're muted.
We all need t-shirts. You are on mute. Okay. What I was saying was brilliant. What I was saying was someone in the chat communicated with me that they are aware that they may speak often from the gut and chest and think they might be perceived as scary. And I said, no, that I mentioned threat with the gut voice, but threat isn't the only thing that it's used for. It is just another voice of authority or certainty that can be used for threat. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't mean to paint it in such absolutes. You can also think think of it as the sotto voce voice, like, we will talk about this at home. That is sort of a gut voice use.
The Soto what?
Oh, sorry. Sotto voce. It just means soft voice. I happen to have naturally a pretty loud voice, as does my dad. And so my mother, I've grown up with my mother saying, sotto voce, Joy. Why are you speaking so loudly? We are not Italian, but you know, that my mother knows that. At least she knows that much Italian. Okay, anyway, so folks, is there anyone who wants to share? And it can be a bit of your speech or a bit of your remarks. Yeah, okay, great. I saw Ben's hand and then I saw Florence's hand. Great, Ben. So give us a bit, and I may cut you off, so let you know that in advance. Would you like to tell us what resonance you're exploring, or just have us listen?
So I chose the poem "You Are Old, Father William" by Charles Dodgson, and I find myself speaking for the youth to be from the head, because probably because I imagine a youth to be rather enthusiastic and inquisitive.
Great. Let's share a bit with us.
You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white, and yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right?
Awesome. Thank you. And then actually, Ben, that was really effective. And then we also get into the idea of characterization too. So setting apart let's say, a narrator's voice from a character's voice. Great. Thank you. Really, really interesting. Florence, please.
So my speech from a play has some beats in it, so there may be more than one resonance, and I don't know how many I'll get through. It depends when you stop me. So,
okay.
Hey, what's up, kiddo? Daddy says you're wearing a sad face. Ain't good to have a sad face. Hey, how would you like a coloring book? Would you like that? You like Mickey the Mouse? Oh, son of a bitch. Oh, wow. Now come on down to the car and let's all be friends. You see me smile. Come on, let's see you smile, like Aunt Trixie. Now come down to the car with Mademoiselle. Kiddo, I understand how you feel, but you don't have to worry. One of these days you're going to be just as pretty as Mademoiselle, maybe prettier. You already got bone structure. When I was your age, I didn't have no bone structure. It took me years to get bone structure, and don't think bone structure is not important. Nobody started to call me Mademoiselle until I was 17 and getting a little bone structure. Well, when I was your age, I was skinnier than a pole. I never thought I'd have nothing up here. It's going to happen up there too.
Florence, I will pause you there. That monologue, first of all, that is amazing. Yes, you'll have to tell us more about that. Thank you for that. And also, I should say, for Ben and Florence, both with their sharings demonstrated a point that I wanted to make explicitly. With these different voices or parts of our pitch range, variety is the spice of life. So even with both of you, you both had characters who were either younger or more enthusiastic, but you never got into a monotone. So if I'm really excited, I can still talk with some range and pitch. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trapped if we were on a piano on a single note. Even if I'm speaking with enthusiasm, I'll still have some variety there. And then of course, if I'm speaking confidently, I can have some variety there. So I just wanted to say, within those sort of big categories that we're exploring, there's still variety. Yes, great, thank you so much. Anyone else who wanted to share before we end today? Yeah, Patty. Great. Patty and Nella. Patty?
I'm not sure. So I'm going to try to stay in one pitch, or I can change my pitch.
You can change it up. Yeah, what you're really doing, Patty, is you're sharing your exploration with us.
Okay. This is The Pie by Soto. I knew enough about hell to stop me from stealing. I was holy in almost every bone. Some days I recognized the shadows of angels flopping on the backyard grass, and other days I heard faraway messages in the plumbing that howled underneath the house when I crawled there looking for something to do. but boredom made me sin. Once, at the German market, I stood before a rack of pies, my sweet tooth gleaming, and the juice of guilt wetting my underarms. I gazed at the 9 kinds of pie, pecan, apple being my favorite, although cherry looked good, and my dear fat-faced chocolate was also a good bet. I nearly wept, trying to decide which to steal, and forgetting the flowery dust priests give off, the shadow of angels, and the proximity of God howling in the plumbing underneath the house. Sneaked a pie behind my coffee-lid frisbee and walked to the door, grinning to the bald grocer, whose forehead shone with a window of light.
Thank you. Okay, yes. Where is that reading from, Patty? Also, I will do much less talking next session because all of the pieces that you all have chosen are so different and fascinating, and we get to know you a bit through your speech. Yes, go for it, please.
Oh,
for now. Thank you. Patty, did you want to say anything about the resonances you were exploring?
Oh, I was just going all, I mean, I was just kind of, I could go all over the place with it.
You were, that's great. You were playing the...
It's a real literal story that's full of symbolism, and it's fun to read and stuff. So it's, but doing the pitches made it really interesting because you have a lot of choices of whether you go down when you talk about the plumbing and the howling and the guilt, versus up. So you could really play around and sort of almost set up a path for yourself, I guess.
Absolutely.
Where is it from, Patty?
Oh, it's called DeSoto. It's you can just, it's called The Pie from Gary Soto, S-O-T-O.
That's interesting.
And A Summer Life, 1990, and all of his work is like that, really symbolic, and it's a lot of alliteration, and it's a fun. He's
awesome.
Sort of like a poet writer, so yeah, you can find it online, or I can send it if you want. I mean,
For a second, I thought it was from Dante's Inferno.
Given
the stuff with hell and overeating.
It is in a way. It's a point of view of the 6-year-old child, and the first feeling of it's the dawn of guilt. If you're 4 years old, you don't really feel guilty about anything, or most people don't. But it's the turning point in the psychology of a child where you all of a sudden feel guilt. And so yeah, so it's a really important, interesting essay. I can put the. Can I attach it? Can I just? I'll send it to you, and you can send it out.
Okay, sounds great.
And everybody can read it. But yeah, it kind of reminds you of when you first felt guilty about something.
Awesome. So we'll end with our last speaker of the evening. Then we'll do more of this next week. We'll get more into pitch, so resonance, but then particular uses of pitch for inflection, emphasis, lists, builds, etc. But wonderful work. Yes, I am recording the class. Yes, absolutely. All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay. How do you know that your dog is unstable? If you're like the majority of my clients, you just know. Your dog gets aggressive with other dogs on walks and at the parks, or howls for hours when you leave the house, or compulsively runs away. All this is puzzling to you because the family dog from your childhood was perfect, or that is the way you remember him. In the amber glow of your memory, your beloved Blackie was mellow, obedient, and content to stay in the background. He was naturally social and always got along with strange people and dogs. He fetched and returned the tennis ball, walked beside you to school, and never peed in the house. So why does your current dog dig in your garden? Why does he hide under the table when the garbage truck drives by? What in the world is up with him when he manically spins in circles when he gets excited? Of course, like most of my clients with unstable dogs, you simply accept that your dog was born with something missing or has some sort of mental disorder. Or if your dog was adopted from a rescue organization, you create a story that he had such a traumatic experience in the past placement that he will never be able to forget that terrible abuse he suffered during those dark, lonely years before he met you.
So again, a fascinating piece of text. fascinating bunch of people. Do you want to tell us a bit about what you were exploring?
I'm just trying to explore, not talking from my.
Can I tell you,
Yes.
it sounded really clear and resonant. I see other people nodding their heads. So know that you did that and that was your intention and we felt that. I also want to say you may be in a resonant room. I see that you're in a room with lots of, with a wall behind you. But your voice rang, it really rang. So just, that that's possible, what you did. So then we'll build the practice of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, come on, win for the class. All right, so we've gone a little bit over time, but so much good stuff. Thank you for today's session. I'll send you a summary. I'll send you the table with the resonances. I'll probably send additional YouTube videos around vocal tension or, sort of auxiliary videos to anything we discussed today. And if you had other thoughts or questions, then you can always reply to that email when you get it. Okay. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday. All right. Be well, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Bye. Bye, dear. See you soon.